What's going on, everybody? I wanted to hop on here today and bring you guys a little informational about one of my personal favorite baits, something that I'm going to be throwing throughout the year. It's going to be a staple, and it's always, I've actually got 2 rods dedicated just to throwing this bait. So what I want to talk about today is going to be the chatterbait. Specifically, I want to talk about my personal favorite, the jackhammer. This is going to be one of my go-to baits. I have a lot of confidence in throwing the jackhammer specifically. With fishing being a big-time confidence thing, I feel like it's only right to throw what you feel is going to get you the most bites. So there's going to be a couple things that I want to talk about today. The first thing I want to talk about is going to be kind of when I'm throwing this, where I'm throwing it, why I'm throwing it. The other thing I want to talk about is going to be the different trailers that I put on a chatterbait. And the last thing that I want to talk about is going to be some kind of little secrets, and I've got a little bonus chatterbait secret that I'm going to bring to you guys. As always, make sure to like, comment, and if you're new, subscribe. It really helps out the channel. It helps me out a lot. So jumping right into this, I'm going to basically talk about first what, when, why, and how. So for me specifically, a 1/2 ounce chatterbait is going to be thrown 90-95% of the time. There's only a very select few instances and when you'll see me pick up a 3/8. So the times that I like to throw the chatterbait is going to be any time that it's really windy. It's also going to be something that when the bite's really tough and I know the fish aren't just in a real munching mood, I'm going to pick up a chatterbait and I'm going to chuck and wind that thing all day long, knowing that I may not get a lot of bites, but typically those bites that you're going to get are going to be those bigger fish, those ones you're looking for, especially in a tournament setting. I really love throwing the chatterbait in the spring, especially when the fish are starting to pull up, starting to think about spawning, protecting beds. A chatterbait's going to be something that I can cover a ton of water and key in on where those fish are hanging out at. Now, location wise, what I'm looking for to throw a chatterbait, there's not necessarily a wrong time to throw a chatterbait. However, I really like using a chatterbait to run down the edges of docks. I love fishing them in those early growing lily pad stems when they're starting to come up. That's got that hard bottom where those fish can kind of pull up and make a nest. And one other place that a lot of guys don't seem to throw the chatterbait, I really like throwing it around wood cover. So what I also want to talk to you guys about is going to be some of my specific colors, or what I like to do with the chatterbait when it comes to water clarity. So when I'm dealing with super muddy water, I'm dealing with what I call less than a foot and a half of visibility. I'm going to be specifically throwing really about 2, maybe 3 colors. The number one is going to be a black and blue or black chatterbait. So I love that offset that gives. It gives you a really hard contrast in that really dark water. So that's going to be a great color to throw. I'm also going to mix in there on shad bodies of water, throwing a white or a white and black variants. So something like this is going to be able to give me a little bit more of a shaddy look. It's going to match the hatch a little bit more. I feel like that's something that's really key when you're picking a bait. You're trying to pick the presentation that you want to show those fish. I think that the above all thing to cover is matching the hatch. Now, one other color that I really like to throw when it comes to muddy water situations is going to be some sort of chartreuse and white. It's just a little bit different. I find that not a lot of guys are throwing something with that chartreuse variance. So what that's going to allow me to do is be a little bit different, especially when I'm fishing pressured bodies of water where I know I'm dragging it around behind where somebody's been before. Now, once that water clarity gets a little bit cleaner, when we're talking like 2 to maybe 5 foot of visibility, I really like to settle down, stay with pretty much one color. It's going to be a bluegill variance or perch variance. This one right here is called Brett's Bluegill. This is going to be a staple that I throw really in a lot of my lakes around here. being in Indiana, I've found that unless you're at a shad lake, your primary forage is going to be some sort of bluegill or perch. So having that green pumpkin with a little bit of orange mix in there really allows me to match what that primary forage species is going to be. Now, once the water gets super clear, that's where I may mix in a couple of different colors to go with that. That bluegill is still going to be a great color to go with. However, when it comes to those cleaner shad bodies of water, I want to go away from the gold blade. I feel like sometimes it's just a little bit too much flash. So I like to go back to a shad variants with a silver blade on it. What that's going to allow me to do is just replicate that bait fish as best as possible. Now, to flip the script on that, we're going to talk a little bit about trailers. So there are a ton of trailers on the market. Really, there's not a lot of ways you can go wrong with picking a trailer. However, I have found that I've got about 3 different types or 3 different trailers that I find myself throwing all the time when I'm out there on the water. So the first trailer that I'm going to talk about is going to be my all-time favorite, the Gary Yamamoto Zako. This little bad boy right here is no secret, possibly one of the best chatterbait trailers I have ever thrown. The reason I really like it, it gives you that fish appearance, it gives you a fish body. It doesn't have a lot of crazy action, just a little tail kick on the back. It also comes in a ton of different colors, so I'm able to plug and play depending on what I think the primary forage species is, and it just flat out gets bit. Now, when I'm not throwing that Zako by Gary Yamamoto, there's going to be those other 2 that I'm going to be throwing. A lot of times, if it's not the Zako, it's going to be some sort of little kicker crawl trailer. This one right here I've got is a Reaction Innovation Spicy Beaver. This one's going to have a little bit more tail kick. It's going to put off and displace a little bit more water. I find myself throwing this a lot of times when I think that maybe they're keying in a little bit more on crawfish, or I just want to give it a little bit of a different look when I think a lot of guys are throwing a chatterbait in front of me. And then the third and final trailer that I like to throw on the back of my chatterbait is going to be something that I'm throwing in very select situations, and that is going to be a 3.8 inch Kitech Fat Impact. I like to use this trailer when I plan on fishing, or I run into a situation where I'm fishing super duper shallow, or I'm fishing flats that go from 6 inches of water all the way out to, 2 or 3 foot, but big, long, drawn out, shallow flats. The reason for that is going to be with this Kitech on the back, it's going to allow me to keep that bait up and out of the junk really, really well. Now, one disclaimer I will let you guys know about when you're throwing a Kitech on the back of your swim bait. Now, one disclaimer I will let you guys know about is when you're throwing a Kitech on the back of a chatterbait, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to rig that bad boy upside down. Now, I know this sounds counterintuitive. However, the reason for that is when you get this blade down in that water and that blade's sitting there vibrating really, really hard, making a lot of movement, if you have this rigged the normal way, what it does is it actually draws that paddle up and into that vibration zone where that blade's displacing the water, and it gives you a kind of a goofy looking action. When you flip that bad boy over, turn it upside down, it's going to allow that paddle to stay down, swim more true, and look a lot more natural. All of these baits I'm going to be throwing on pretty much one specific rod. I'm going to be throwing that on a 7'3" to 7'6". I love a medium heavy, moderate fast action rod. Specifically, I like something that has that glass mix to it. I like a glass composite mix. I feel like with that glass, it gives you just a little bit more give. And when I do get those bites, or I get those fish that are kind of just coming up and slapping at the bait, it allows them to suck that bait completely in before I set the hook. It's going to greatly improve hookup ratios. If you've never tried throwing one on a rod like that, like I said, 7'3" to 7'6", medium, heavy, moderate, fast, with that glass composite mix, I really recommend that you give a rod like that a try. you're going to feel the bait way better, and you're going to catch more fish. The last little secret that I'm going to give you guys is something that I don't tell a lot of people about. I've come across kind of a finesse way to fish a chatterbait. So what I'm going to be talking about is a Z-Man Willow Vibe. So this little bad boy here doesn't come with a skirt, really basic. It's got a goofy blade on the front of it. Now what I've found is a lot of times in the fall, when the fish are between that stage of summertime and putting on that winter feed bag, when they're feeding on really bigger, more bulky bait, trying to stockpile, you'll have, after those spawns, those small, real small bait fish, and those fish will be keying in on those a lot of times. Now what I'm going to do when I run into those situations where those fish are keying in on the small bait fish is I'm going to pair something like this 1/4 ounce Willow Vibe with a little 3.5 or 4 inch scented jerk shad. And how I'm going to basically do that is I'm just going to rig that bad boy up on there straight, just like normal, and I'm going to chuck and wind that thing around those smaller bait schools when I'm seeing little baits popping. What I've found is a lot of times once those fish get into that finicky bite and they're just not wanting to chew, or I can't get them to commit to something big like a normal chatterbait, if I switch over to the Willow Vibe with that little scented jerk shad on the back, I'm able to get a lot more bites, and I'm able to key in on some big fish sometimes. So that's going to be a little secret. Maybe put that one in your back pocket when the bite's tough. Give that a try. I really think it'll help you catch some fish. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If there's anything you think I missed, drop a comment down below. Let me know what your tips and secrets are for throwing a chatterbait. I'd love to hear them. As always, like, comment, subscribe if you're new. It really helps me out, helps out the channel here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great night.